So, it being Father's Day, I thought I'd start with this. What kind of advice did your dad give you growing up? So, think about that for a second and go ahead and write it in the comments. Go ahead and write whatever quote, phrase, whatever advice that you got from your dad. It can be good advice, bad advice, and anywhere in between. Well, while you're doing that, I asked some of the ministry team members to tell me the best advice that their dads gave them. Well, here's what they said.
The best advice I've received from my dad is use the bathroom before you take an exam. Now, I gotta tell you, that advice has saved me from so many difficult situations. And so, if you ever find yourself taking an exam in the future, make sure you use the bathroom first.
So my dad is a very hardworking, very soft-spoken man. He's a man of very few words, but I've learned a couple of things from him. I've learned that there's only three types of people in the world: those who can count and those who can't. I've also learned that there is no act of service that is too small or too beneath you. If the Lord asks you to do something, you better do it. It's something I try to emulate because it's something my father taught me in his actions and through his words.
When I was a single young lady, my dad gave me two pieces of advice that empowered me in my dating relationship. First, he said I could have any man I wanted as long as I knew how to treat him well. Second, before I went off to college, he sat me down and he said, "Daughter, you can marry anybody you want as long as he loves God and he loves you." And that's exactly what I did.
Dad should have been way more specific because I don't think he was expecting this as a son-in-law.
When I think about the best advice that my dad's given me, the first thing that comes to mind is a Super Nintendo controller, arguably one of the best video game consoles ever. Now, my dad does not care about video games. I think he actually hates video games. But he knew that we cared about them. And so whenever he took us to the rental stores to rent a video game, or when we went to the store to buy a video game, he was ever so patient with us as we paced back and forth the video games that were in the aisle as we tried to determine which one we wanted to buy or which one we wanted to rent. And although he didn't say it, I knew that his patience meant that he cared for us and that he loved us. And that's something that I've taken upon myself to practice with those who I care for and that I love.
So for me, my dad gave me some sound career advice when I was in high school. He said, don't become a lawyer. See, he was a lawyer, and so he knew it would not be good for me. Also, my dad loves to quote Yoda to say, do or do not, there is no try. You can tell the lightsaber doesn't fall too far from the tree in this family. Well, now, advice from dad is great. But what if there's more to wisdom than that? What if there's more to wisdom than simply fatherly advice? That's what we're going to talk about today. And it's part of our series, Wisdom in a Time of Uncertainty. And this week, I want to talk to you about one of the primary themes around wisdom in the Bible: the contrast between godly wisdom and earthly wisdom. How can you tell one from the other? More importantly, how can you tell if you're living by earthly or human wisdom and not by godly or divine wisdom? How can you tell that? Well, to answer that question, we are going to turn to one of the best passages in the entire Bible on this topic. It's in the book of James, chapter 3. And first, I'm going to read the whole thing, and then we're going to break it down. So here it is. This is James 3, 13 through 17. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in meekness of wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. So James, the author here, sets up a pretty stark contrast between the two types of wisdom. And he gives you a way to know which one you're living by. So here's the big idea. Here it is. You ready? Godly wisdom pursues peace. Earthly wisdom pursues power, position, and privilege. And your life proves your place. Let me say that again. It's that important. Godly wisdom pursues peace. Earthly wisdom pursues power, position, and privilege. And your life proves your place. So let's break this down a little bit. So first, godly wisdom pursues peace. See, James ends this section with a proverb. It's a wise saying, just like the book of Proverbs, just like the ones we've been reading the last few weeks. And it's verse 18. It says this: peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. See, this is meant to be a summary statement for the whole paragraph. It's not just a little throwaway at the end. And it gives you a lens through which to read everything else. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. See, when you are a peacemaker, you plant peace in all your relationships. And you will grow righteousness in return. Now see, in contrast, when you plant division, criticism, argument, you will grow sin, not righteousness. And you essentially end up as a war maker, not a peacemaker. See, this passage lists out 8 characteristics of what godly wisdom looks like. And here they are: pure, peace-loving, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy, full of good fruit, impartial, and sincere. So let me ask you, does that describe you? Does that describe your life? Is that how your spouse, your kids, your friends would describe you? See, if not, you might be falling in the other camp, relying on earthly wisdom instead. And again, back to the big idea, earthly wisdom pursues power, position, and privilege. See, this passage describes 2 key characteristics of a person living by earthly wisdom. It's the phrase bitter envy and selfish ambition. In fact, it's so important, James repeats it twice in the same paragraph. See, bitter envy is better understood as religiously zealous jealousy. We might call this self-righteousness, or #oversaved, or even judgmental super-Christian. And then selfish ambition, this is an amazing Greek word. It's used for the self-seeking pursuit of power by controlling or unjust means. Selfish ambition, it's the self-seeking pursuit of power by controlling or unjust means. You see, this seems like a pretty good segment or a pretty good description of a whole segment of Christianity these days. Whether you call them evangelicals, the religious right, fundamentalists, this description of self-righteous, judgmental, oversaved, and self-seeking and pursuing power, that's a pretty good description. And it's in Christianity right now, and it's all over the place. So you see, what the passage says is when you are filled with bitter envy and selfish ambition, you are planting a whole lot of nasty stuff. See, here are just some of the words associated with earthly wisdom, with bitter envy and selfish ambition: boasting, truth denying, earthly, unspiritual, even demonic, disorder, evil practices. See, man, that's not a pretty list. But if you're not planting peace, if you are self-righteous, if you're judgmental toward others, if you're seeking positions of power for yourself, then as the passage says, there you will find disorder and every evil practice. So there's one more part to our big idea. So we started with godly wisdom pursues peace. Then we went to earthly wisdom pursues power, position, and privilege. And now the last part, and your life proves your place. See, here's what the passage says. Who is wise and understanding among you? James starts with a rhetorical question. Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the meekness of wisdom. I love that phrase, the meekness of wisdom. Is your life, are the things you do, are they marked by the meekness of wisdom? How do you know where you're living, which garden you're planting in? Well, it's not your words. It's not even your opinions. It's not what you think about yourself. It's your good life and your good deeds, or your not so good life and your not so good deeds. See, no one who is truly wise ever has to say that they're wise, because people know it from their life, because your life proves your place. So remember, godly wisdom pursues peace. Earthly wisdom pursues power, position, and privilege. And your life proves your place. So, how are you living your life? How would your spouse, your friends answer that question? What kind of seeds are you planting in your life? Are you planting peace that will end up in righteousness? Or are you planting criticism and judgment and harshness and self-righteousness that will result in all kinds of evil deeds? So I want to close with a quote. And I ran across this while preparing for this message and reading commentaries. And it's from one of the foremost theologians alive today. His name is N.T. Wright. And it absolutely stopped me in my tracks. I was floored by how much it applies to us today, right now, even in the last few months. And it was written almost 10 years ago. So here it is. In this passage, we are faced with two kinds of wisdom. But this may well be a word for our day, when so many people are fed up with the way our country is run, with the way our police force behaves, with the way our economy functions, and so on. But the challenge then for God's people is to be able to tell the truth about the way the world is and about the way wicked people are behaving without becoming someone whose appearance of wisdom consists in being able to find a cutting word to say about everyone and everything. There is still, after all, a vast amount of beauty, love, generosity, and sheer goodness in the world. Those who follow Jesus ought not only to celebrate it, but contribute to it. It's better, as the saying goes, to light a candle than curse the darkness. So what are you planting? What are you contributing to this world? Are you a peacemaker who plants peace and grows righteousness? Or are you full of criticism, division, self-righteousness, and self-promotion? And all you will grow is disorder and every evil practice. Okay, church, may your lives be full of godly wisdom that result in peace and righteousness.